Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Binance Coin, and we're going to be discussing a realistic price prediction for this market cycle. We're continuing this series. We did one on Polkadot and Cardano, Ethereum and Chainlink. The one on Link was specifically just mainly geared towards 2021, but maybe later this summer. But the other ones we talked about for the duration of the market cycle. It's easy to just throw out numbers and say, okay, well, it's going to go to whatever price number makes it so that your portfolio is now worth a given amount. However, let's take a more pragmatic approach, right? These cryptocurrencies do not care what the valuation of your portfolio is, but what is important is looking at the market capitalization of them with respect to other cryptocurrencies. So, with that said, if you like the content, if you like the channel, subscribe. We'll be doing other videos similar to this one in the future, so definitely subscribe to the channel. Let's go for 250,000 subscribers. Give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel. You can find a link to that in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So rather than just throw out numbers based on fundamental fluff, let's actually look to see, well, based on momentum, based on where the entire cryptocurrency market class, the asset class could go in terms of the market capitalization, what would be a realistic target for Binance that we could say, okay, it's possible that it hits it. Obviously, the stars are going to have to align for Bitcoin, but if they do, then it's possible that the Binance coin could go to this theoretical valuation. Well, the place to start is the market cap. And remember, this is something I think is the most overlooked by newcomers. They see a certain coin, they buy in, and then they think that it has to go up, 50x from there because it went up 50x over the last year. And then they just sort of start calculating out, okay, well, where would that put it? Now, where would a 50x put Binance Coin? I just want to show you, sort of starting with something that's just overly ridiculous and almost assuredly not going to happen. Let's understand why it's likely not going to happen, because I think that's a thing that people often overlook. Why is it likely not going to happen this market cycle? Well, let's take a look at the market capitalization. It's approximately 44 billion. Okay, so if we were to go and look at a 44 billion market capitalization, let's just say it's 40 billion. If we were to multiply that by 50, we're talking about $2 trillion. And a $2 trillion market cap on Binance Coin, when Bitcoin is only 1 trillion, is likely just not going to happen. Okay, so that's the first thing to consider. Now, those that have watched this show before, we've also looked back in time when we were in the bear market. When we were actually in the bear market, we were talking about these things, and we could say, well, what if Bitcoin's valuation goes up, right? I mean, like, if the idea of a 50x would take Binance Coin to 2 trillion, that doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin's staying at 1 trillion, but for Bitcoin to accommodate a $2 trillion market capitalization for Binance Coin, it would just have to go to levels that I do not think are going to be attainable this market cycle. Okay, and we're gonna show several reasons why. But then we want to discuss, well, what is obtainable, right? What is obtainable? So first, if you look at a historical snapshot, viewer discretion is advised. I know a lot of people stomachs might turn when looking at this. If you look at where Binance Coin was a year ago, on March 13th, 2020, where was it? The market cap of Binance Coin then was at 1.684 billion. Okay, so less than 2 billion. Today, the market capitalization is over 43 billion, closing in on 44 billion. So, but the important thing I think to take from this chart is Bitcoin's market capitalization on March 13th reached approximately 100 billion. It was at this point it was 101 billion, but we know that there were a few hours where the price dropped all the way down to $3,800, $3,900, so it went even lower than a market cap of 100 billion. So if the idea is that these coins can never reach the market capitalization of Bitcoin in a market cycle, that's not necessarily true. It just implies that Bitcoin's market capitalization is much higher. For instance, Ethereum's current market capitalization is 200 billion, but a year ago, Bitcoin's market cap was only 100 billion. So in 1 year, Ethereum has gone to 2x Bitcoin's prior market capitalization. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind, that just because Bitcoin's current market capitalization is at 1 trillion, we're not assuming it will stay there. Okay, because if it did stay there, then it would certainly limit where altcoin market caps could go. Where could Bitcoin's market capitalization go this market cycle? Well, I think the best way to understand that and then help us understand where Binance Coin might be able to go would be to look at this chart where we discuss the entire cryptocurrency asset class. We have our logarithmic regression curve. We take the percent difference between our market cap and our regression curve, and we get something that looks like this. And one of the things we note is that, well, if we were to go back up to the top of this trend line, where would it put us? Well, you can see we're still theoretically several 100% away. Again, this is the entire cryptocurrency market cap, not just Bitcoin. So if we're several 100% away, where could it put us on this curve? Well, it depends on how long it takes us to get there. Okay, if Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency asset class were to trend up to the top of this curve within, say, the next 3 months, then I imagine it could top out closer to 5 to 7 trillion. If it takes us longer and it takes us more than a year to get there, let's say we slowly trend up to it and we're hitting the peak either later in this, like late this year, maybe in 2022, then it's theoretically possible to be flirting with 10 trillion. If it takes even longer than that, I think 10 trillion becomes even more comfortable of a target. So what does that mean, right? What does it mean for the entire market cap of crypto to be 10 trillion? Well, the way we can understand that is, well, where is it now? Well, right now it's at 1.7 trillion. Let's just round up and say currently it's at 2 trillion. That means the entire asset class could potentially go up another 5x from here, according to that model. Okay, now if we were to scale everything up by 5x, that would be the most realistic way to do it. Well, I don't know about realistic, but that's one approach, is just scale everything in the asset class up by 5x. If we were to do that, then it would put Binance Coin, which is currently trading at 44 billion. So it would put it at around 200 billion. So a 5x in the entire asset class could theoretically put Bitcoin at 5 trillion, could put Ethereum at 1 trillion, and it could put Binance Coin at a modest 200 billion, maybe a little over 200 billion. However, if you're aware of how the cryptocurrency asset class works in general, from here, there's a decent chance that various altcoins will outperform Bitcoin over, say, the duration of the market cycle. It's sort of a misnomer to think that Bitcoin is the only one that is worth, in my opinion, that's worth investing in, because there are a lot of altcoins that do provide very attractive returns. Now, I would contend that Bitcoin is the one that if I had to pick one coin to invest in, it would be Bitcoin, right? If I could only invest in one coin, it would be that one, because I do think that Bitcoin will stand the test of time. I think it's the king. I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think anything's going to flip at this market cycle. With that said, I do recognize the potential upside with a lot of altcoins, and in fact, including altcoins in your portfolio can improve your Sharpe ratio. Just from a mathematical perspective, there's reason to include altcoins in a portfolio. However, that doesn't necessarily mean you should go all in on altcoins. Now, again, this is not financial advice, but one way we could do this is say, well, if the entire asset class were to scale up by 5x over a couple years or something, then does that mean that Bitcoin scaled by 5x? Not necessarily, right? It could mean that there's altcoins that are scaling more. I mean, if you just look at our ROI from March, for Bitcoin and Binance Coin, Bitcoin from 100 billion to 1 trillion, that's a 10x from the daily close back then. Binance Coin was less than 2 billion, and it's already up to over 40 billion. So we're looking at around a 20x, more than a 20x move, a 20x to a 30x move or so. So there is reason, in my opinion, for altcoins, but you have to recognize the potential downside risk. Now, one nice thing about Binance Coin is that it actually does behave somewhat different than a lot of other cryptocurrencies. And similar to Chainlink, it put in a new all-time high in 2019. So this should be at least something to turn our heads and to take it seriously. Most cryptocurrencies were not able to put in all-time highs in 2019. They just simply were not. Bitcoin had the show back in the early 2019, starting in April, May, June, in that time frame, and July, Bitcoin was basically stealing the show. And because Bitcoin's valuation was so much lower than its prior all-time high, most altcoins didn't have a chance at all to reach all-time highs. And a lot of altcoins still have not reached all-time highs. Fortunately, the coins that we cover on this channel have, because I do think, we spent a long time picking out the projects that we thought would stand the test of time, would provide the best ROI out of a basket of cryptocurrencies. Binance Coin is at least one to take seriously because you look at it and you say, well, in 2019 it was putting in new all-time highs, and if we were to take a measured move from the wick to the new all-time high of 2019, I mean, it was up a 60%. It might not look like much. This is a logarithmic scale. It was up 60%. The other thing we can note is that Binance Coin tends to have these runs, right? Here's one where it moved up 3,300%. We had another move here from the bottom to the local top of approximately 3,300% as well. So it had sort of two moves followed by a bear market. We might assume if it's below this bull market support band, which is a combination of the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA, that it's in either a bear market or an accumulation phase. So this is a bull market. This would maybe be considered an accumulation phase or a bear market. And then we went back into this bull market phase. We put in a new all-time high, and then we were in accumulation phase for a while. And then over here, we started to get back into this bull market phase. We were holding it as support, and then we blasted off. And if we measure it from, say, this bottom up to the current valuation, it's 4,000%. To the top, it was 5,500%. To the top of the candle, from the bottom of this candle, it was also around 2,900%. So fairly similar to some of these moves that we saw over here of 3,300% and another 2,500%. But again, this is measured over a longer time period. You can see that this move took a lot longer. It took about a year, whereas these only took, a matter of months or weeks. So there is a decent distinction there. One thing I want people to be aware of is when we talk about market cycle, that doesn't necessarily mean this is going to happen next month. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in Q3. Doesn't even necessarily mean it's going to happen in 2021. Okay? What I'm looking for, ultimately, is I'm looking for us to trend back up to the top of this trend line in terms of the entire cryptocurrency asset class, meaning we're trending closer, not maybe all the way to it, but getting close to this green dash line up here. So I do think we have a ways to go. However, we have to recognize that there will be pullbacks along the way. If history is any indication, any altcoin can have fairly sizable pullbacks. I mean, this one here was a 77% pullback or an 80% pullback. Here we had another pullback that was 81%. We had a pullback here from this top in 2019 to the bottom of 85%. A lot of people just think it's all fun and games. And what happens a lot of times is new money comes into the space because they come in at the worst possible time, and they FOMO in because it's all in the news, and then they lose 80%, they cash out, they capitulate at the bottom, further making it even worse than it had to be, and then the coin sort of recovers and then continues on. The reason, it's not all fun and games, right? We're able to experience 3,000 to 4,000% moves occasionally, right? What's a few thousand% among friends? But it comes at a cost, right? And the cost is a theoretical downside risk. So if you're investing in altcoins like Binance Coin and you expect it to go up several thousand%, it might be a realistic expectation over the long time frame, but you have to recognize that there will likely be pullbacks that could turn a lot of stomachs. That might be more than 50%. They could be 60% or more. You have to keep that in mind. Okay, you have to keep that in mind for the duration of the market cycle. We saw it with Ethereum last cycle. Ethereum had a great cycle last market cycle. It went up over 1,000x, well over 1,000x, but it had several 60% corrections along the way. So if you're in this for the long haul, if you believe cryptocurrency is the future of a lot of different industries, and you believe you're behind the person, which by the way I do think CZ is a good figurehead in the space. I mean, he's fairly active. I often say, it's a good idea to bet on people. Then you should not get too worked up over short-term drops, because they will happen. Sometimes they might be a little bit longer than short-term drops, but I would say those in the space that have historically recognized those times as opportunities are ultimately the ones that end up doing much better. The ones that ultimately capitulate when that happens are the ones that don't. Okay, there's nothing wrong with taking profits along the way. I'm sure a lot of people took profits here, and hopefully they took profits again up here. You don't have to go all in or all out. There's probably people that are taking profits here. Doesn't mean they're going all out. I think there's still room in the cycle for Binance Coin to trend much higher. Now, where would another 3,000% move take us, right? I mean, we just put in one over the course of about a year. And let's just not even bother with the wicks, because it's hard to imagine very many people bought at the exact bottom. But let's suppose that we repeated this, which is a somewhat dubious extrapolation, but let's say another 3,000% over another year. Well, that would be putting it at $10,000. So this would be, you know, very, very hard to achieve, in my opinion, right? I think this would be very hard to achieve for Binance Coin to go up another 3,000% in the next year. You know, you'd be talking about going to market capitalizations that are going to be well over $1 trillion. I mean, so 1,000% is 11x, right? So 3,000% would be 31x. So if it's 43, let's say 40 times 30, you know, you're talking about well over a $1 trillion market capitalization. And because Bitcoin's current market capitalization is 1 trillion, I do have a hard time seeing it happen. Again, if you look at the historical snapshot, we see proof that coins can reach Bitcoin's prior market cap, but this is at the bottom of the bear market. I don't know that at this stage in the cycle that altcoins are going to reach Bitcoin's current market capitalization. I do think that Bitcoin's market capitalization peak for this cycle will probably be between $2 to $4 trillion. So I think Bitcoin from this point, theoretically speaking, you know, a more pragmatic conservative view based on some other models, I would say another 2 to 4x from here by the end of the market cycle. There could be a lot of pullbacks along the way. So with that in mind, if Bitcoin can go up to say 2 to 4 trillion, and we could imagine the cryptocurrency asset class as a whole going to 10 trillion, but let's say if it does it sooner, maybe closer to maybe like 6 trillion or so, depending on how quickly that happens, then it's gonna make it so there's not gonna be a ton of room, right? If Bitcoin's market cap is say 3 trillion and the entire asset class goes to say 6 to 7 trillion before a major pullback, for any one altcoin besides Ethereum to have a market capitalization of 1 trillion, I think is pushing it a little too much. But what's realistic? Again, I could see it going to 300 billion, 400 billion. I mean, I think another 10x from here is, of course, theoretically possible. It might seem somewhat insane to consider a Binance coin over $1,000 or over $2,000, but we've seen these cycles go higher than we could ever imagine before. We've seen them extend to places no one would have thought about, and I think time is on our side, right? Expect corrections along the way. Expect major corrections. There's going to be pullbacks in not just Binance Coin, but the entire asset class as a whole. But I think those that sort of just stick with it will stand the test of time. These are the portfolios that will do the best. But again, there's nothing wrong with taking profits, right? If you're up 30x and you want to skim some profits, there's nothing wrong with that. And the reason I say that is because you have to consider your risk reward, right? It could go up another 10x. What if it doesn't? Well, what if it retraces 50%? So you have to consider, what is the reward? What is the potential reward for the risk you're taking on, right? When we were over here at the bottom, when Bitcoin was at a modest 100 billion in its market capitalization, the risk reward was very attractive. And we were at the 200-week moving average. And back then we said this is basically the best time to buy Bitcoin if history is any indication. And the same thing went with a lot of these altcoins. I mean, Ethereum was at 130, Binance Coin was at 1083. So we can't fool ourselves into thinking that buying these coins today is less risky than buying them a year ago. It's simply not true. The entire asset class has moved up by a significant amount, right? I mean, we're talking 10x, more than 10x in the matter of a year. So we cannot fool ourselves into thinking that it's less risky today than it was back then, because it's simply not true. So if you are coming in today for the first time, you have to recognize that yes, there is a potential upside, and we could see Binance Coin potentially going up several more multiples, like 5 to 10x from here potentially, over the duration of the market cycle. And that will depend, that is somewhat contingent on Bitcoin going up to a market capitalization itself of 2 to 4 trillion, which I think would allow for some of these altcoins like Binance Coin, Cardano, Polkadot to make it to say 300 to 500 billion in their market capitalization. I think that's theoretically possible. So if that's possible, and the stars align, then I think, yeah, I think I've sort of covered the bases there on what I think is theoretically possible for happening. So I don't think a 3,000% move, another one is possible this cycle. But could we see another 1,000% move, or 800% move or something? I do think that's theoretically on the cards. Over the duration of the market cycle, assuming Bitcoin goes to 2 to 4 trillion in its market capitalization over the next few years, or however long it takes. Okay. So another thing to consider is the Binance Bitcoin valuation. Okay. And unfortunately, well, I mean, it's not necessarily that bad of a thing, but we can't look at prior tops and say, okay, well, maybe that's a theoretical limit. if we were to draw the top that Binance Coin had, we've actually already achieved it, and the top actually came in April of 2019, not in 2017 or 2018. So I don't think we can really look at its Bitcoin or the Binance Bitcoin valuation, the Binance Coin Bitcoin valuation, because we really don't know what to compare it to. I mean, you might look at this and say, okay, this looks somewhat similar to maybe like a logarithmic regression growth curve, and maybe I could fit it to something like that to maybe identify, you know, how we have our Ethereum mountain range where we're sort of just coming back to accumulation phases and then sort of bouncing off, right, and doing something like this. This might be something we'll look at in the future. By the way, as we continue on with the video, if you like the content, subscribe. Let's get to 250,000 subscribers. The channel is growing quicker than I ever could have imagined. Thank you guys for subscribing. Definitely subscribe. Turn on your alerts so you get notified of future videos. The other thing we could do is we could look at the Binance Coin Ether valuation, which is also at near its prior top, right? I mean, it's near the prior top, so similar to its Bitcoin valuation. But with its Bitcoin valuation, it has in fact actually exceeded it slightly. So this is the problem when looking at newer coins. We just don't have enough history. One thing we can note, though, is the bull market support band for the Binance Coin Ether valuation. Tend to held it as support back in 2017 and even 2018 and 2019. Then we had this Binance Coin Ether bear market where the Binance valuation against Ether was in a bear market. We were below the 20-week moving average, and we've only recently got above it. So what I would be looking for is if there is a correction in Bitcoin, then there probably is going to be a fairly substantial correction in the altcoin market. And if there is a substantial correction in the altcoin market, there's a decent chance that altcoins will bleed more than Ethereum. And if that happens in the short term, then maybe we'll look to see if Binance Coin can hold the bull market support band for its Binance Coin Ether valuation. So, with that said, I think the most pragmatic way we can look at this market is to take the market capitalization into account, see that Bitcoin is already at 1 trillion. It could go to 2 to 4 trillion, which means it's probably going to be an upper bound in terms of where Binance Coin could go this market cycle. And by the way, Bitcoin could go higher than 2 to 4 trillion. I'm just providing my estimate, which by a lot of people's standards is somewhat conservative. But I think Bitcoin will probably go to somewhere between 2 to 4 trillion. Therefore, I think 2 to 4 trillion is off the cards for Binance Coin. Maybe something in the several $100 billion range could be possible for Binance Coin this market cycle in terms of its total market capitalization. That could put Binance Coin in the 4-figure region. If you guys like the content, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. I hope you enjoyed this video on a realistic price prediction for Binance Coin